everybody, welcome back to another session of the Hopry. My name is Starr, and today I'm going to share my first Hefeweizen with you. Now, a lot of people are already familiar with this beer. It's called the Weihenstephaner Hefeweissbier, and the reason why I wanted to share it with you is that for me, I think it's the best one out there on the market. It's also really easy to obtain. So if you're not familiar with Hefeweizens, which I'm sure probably most of you are, I definitely recommend picking up something like this. In the United States, we've kind of copied this style. We call it just a general wheat beer, but this is the German equivalent of a wheat beer. Now, in my experience with Hefeweizens, they do have a bit of a more, I guess, a unique characteristic than our wheat beers here. Our wheat beers here seem to be not one-dimensional, but they're pretty straightforward. They've got a really nice wheaty, nutty characteristic. So do the Hefeweizens, but you can tell the difference in the two basically, or primarily I should say, based on the yeast flavors that come out of this. So, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started on this one. Again, this comes from Germany. It clocks in right at, I think, 5.5%. 5.4, so about 5.5%. But again, this is a really easy beer to find. You should have no problems at your local liquor store picking up this. And they've got several other products as well. So, if you like this one, kind of branch off and, try some of their others. But I'm going to go ahead and just use a regular, shaker pint glass for this. Don't really need a tulip, as there's just not a whole lot of complexity in these styles of beer. Now, that's not to say that they're not good. It's just, they're just kind of lighter beers, but not quite as light as a lager or a pilsner or anything of that nature. But you can look at the color, and this one's got a ton of carbonation. When I say a ton of carbonation, I mean like a soda even. Maybe even more than that. I mean, those bubbles are just screaming to the top of that glass. So, again, I've only poured it about halfway up. I do want to be able to, give it a little bit of a swirl in there so I can smell it. The head on this is, really traditional for a Hefeweizen, which is really soapy, meaning that it's going to dissipate fairly quickly, which is somewhat unique, based on the fact that there are so many bubbles and there is just a ton of effervescence in here. But, just a traditional look. It is a bit hazy. Now, a lot of times what will happen when you pour a Hefeweizen, usually you'll have a bigger Hefeweizen style glass. But what they ask you to do is pour out about, 90% of the beer, and then you're going to see there's a little bit of sediment in the bottom. And then usually they'll ask you to just kind of swirl the bottle a little bit just to incorporate the sediment into the rest of the beer, and then top it off at the very end. In fact, I'm not going to pour the whole beer in here, but I'm going to try to get some of that in there as well, just so hopefully you can see how much cloudier it gets when I add that little bit at the end. All right. So you can see it got a little bit, cloudier than it was when I originally poured, but, still the same nice, warm, golden yellow color. But I'm going to go ahead and smell it too. So definitely getting that sort of, what reminds me of a Belgian-style yeast. It's very farmhouse ale or saison-like, if you will. I can tell that this is going to be refreshing, that there's some lemon peel in there, a little bit of the clove and the other sorts of flavors that you traditionally find in a Hefeweizen. In fact, I still think this is probably the epitome of what a Hefeweizen is. So, yeah, it tastes exactly like it smells. So, not a whole lot of bitterness. There's a good amount, just a normal amount of bitterness to kind of help keep it refreshing. This is clearly something that you would want to drink in the warmer parts of the year. There's a really good spiciness to it. I do get that lemon rind component, really right up front. I like it's not the acidity that I like about it, but it's the carbonation. I say effervescent a lot, but really all that is just carbonation. And some of these lighter beers, they're really known for having a lot of carbonation. They're light, they're refreshing, and it just kind of helps, bring out the aromatics of the beer. But I truly think this is, of all the Hefeweissens that I've had, this is my favorite. They do tend to get a little bit funky, not a Brettanomyces or a wild yeast funky, but just kind of a funkiness that sometimes it can be kind of hard to explain. These are actually affordable enough that if you go out and you say buy 3 or 4 of these and sit down in an evening and maybe have somebody go through it with you, try about 3 or 4 different Hefeweissens, and you'll just see how, they all share the same characteristics, but there really are a lot of differences in the subtleties. And over the course of even 3 or 4 of these, you can get a wide range of flavors out of the Hefeweissens. But I think probably the reason why I like this one the most is that it reminds me the most of our wheat beers here in the United States. Now, living here in Kansas City, we have one of the best-selling wheats in the country, which is the Boulevard wheat. I've been drinking that beer, on and off for, I don't know, God, at least 15, 20 years. So that's a really good beer if you're looking for, a really good wheat beer in comparison to what a Hefeweizen tastes like. So with that said, let me give it 1 or 2 more sips here. This really kind of reminds me of a like a cloudier, wheatier tasting triple Carmelite. So I get a lot of the same characteristics, like obviously in the color, the yeast flavor really kind of reminds me of the triple Carmelite as well. This one's actually just a little bit funkier, a little bit, a little bit more wheat component. But this is really good. I mean, you can drink these beers all day long. They're, low alcohol, a lot of flavor. And I think, hey, I think this bottle was $2.99. But that's pretty affordable. And you'll find a lot of restaurants and bars who may not always have the best beer lists will generally carry, some of the Hefeweissens and things like that just because they are affordable to sell. But anyway, this is one of my favorites. It's the Weihenstephaner Hefeweissen. So if you can find it, which I know you can, pick one up and go sit out on the back porch and enjoy the hot days of summer. So, well, anyway, guys, let me go ahead and rate this one before we go. I think, we talk a lot about rating beers and how come the lighter beers don't score as high. Why is it just the stouts that get the 95s and the 100s? But I got to be honest with you, when we start talking about the style of Hefeweizen and the number that I've had, for me, this is easily the best one out there. So I'm going to have to go pretty high on this one. In fact, I might just make it an even 95. It's a very solid beer. It's very well respectable. Put them in the refrigerator. They'll sit around for 6-8 months at a time and still be just fine. But anyway, I'll go ahead and leave you with that. And my name is Mark Starr. Thanks a lot for coming back to the Hopry. We'll see you later. Cheers.